Why do Americans love big cars so much? From massive SUVs to full-size pickup trucks, the United States buys more large vehicles than almost any country on earth. But this isn't just about size, it's about culture, geography, lifestyle, and history. Today we dive into the surprising reasons behind America's obsession with big cars and why this trend continues to dominate the roads. From wide open highways to long family road trips, American car culture has always been shaped by space, lifestyle, and identity. But the love for big vehicles didn't appear by accident. It grew from decades of geography, economics, and everyday priorities. Today, as the roads fill with SUVs, trucks, and full-size crossovers, we'll break down the deeper forces behind America's preference for large cars, continuing directly from the ideas raised in our hook. America's preference for big cars begins with something fundamental: the sheer size of the country itself. The United States is one of the largest nations in the world, stretching across thousands of miles of open land, wide plains, rural regions, and long-distance transportation routes. This geography shapes how Americans move, live, and travel every single day, and it naturally encourages the use of larger vehicles. Unlike many European or Asian countries where cities are compact, streets are narrow, and public transportation is heavily relied upon, the majority of American towns and cities are built around space: large parking lots, wide roads, multi-lane highways, and suburban neighborhoods. These environments make driving larger vehicles not just possible, but comfortable and convenient. A big car doesn't feel too big when the roads, parking spaces, and infrastructure are designed around generous room and long travel distances. Another key factor is the distribution of the population. A significant portion of Americans live in suburban or rural areas where daily commutes often cover long stretches of open road. In these regions, big vehicles offer comfort, durability, and a sense of stability during long-distance driving. Pickup trucks and SUVs provide more space, higher driving positions, and better performance on uneven or unpaved roads, which are common outside major cities. For many Americans, a larger vehicle is not a luxury. It is a practical tool for navigating everyday environments. America's extremely long highways also contribute to this cultural preference. Cross-country travel, interstate freight movement, and long weekend road trips are deeply ingrained in American life. A spacious SUV or truck makes these journeys more comfortable, especially for families traveling with luggage, gear, or multiple passengers. The combination of distance, infrastructure, and lifestyle patterns creates a natural alignment between American geography and the dominance of bigger vehicles. Even the design of American homes reinforces this preference. Many households have garages, large driveways, or multi-car parking spaces. This makes owning a big car easy. There's physical space for it. In contrast, dense global cities with limited parking simply cannot accommodate large vehicles at the same scale. When you combine all these elements, vast land, open highways, suburban living, and cultural emphasis on mobility, you get a transportation environment where big cars feel right at home. Geography doesn't just influence American car culture, it silently shapes it, paving the way for the rise of SUVs and pickup trucks long before trends or marketing ever entered the picture. America's long-standing preference for big vehicles isn't only about geography or practicality, it's also deeply cultural. In the United States, cars have always been more than transportation. They're symbols of independence, status, personality, and lifestyle. For many Americans, owning a big car is tied to a sense of freedom. The idea that at any moment you could load up your vehicle, hit the highway, and cross an entire continent without limitation. This cultural mindset, shaped over decades of road trips, suburban growth, and open road mythology, fuels a national identity strongly aligned with larger vehicles. Throughout the 20th century, American pop culture reinforced this preference. Movies, music videos, and TV shows often portrayed big vehicles, pickup trucks, SUVs, muscle cars, as icons of power, adventure, or rugged self-reliance. Hollywood heroes rarely drove compact cars. They drove trucks through deserts, SUVs through snowstorms, or powerful V8s down endless roads. This imagery shaped public perception in subtle but persistent ways. Even people who didn't need a bigger car for practical reasons grew to associate them with comfort, safety, and personal expression. Demographics also play a major role. The US has a strong suburban lifestyle, where families typically live farther from workplaces, schools, and shopping areas. Larger vehicles naturally fit these needs, carrying kids, hauling sports equipment, transporting groceries, and making long daily commutes more comfortable. As suburban families became one of the biggest car buying groups, automakers responded by prioritizing spacious interiors, higher seating positions, and flexible cargo configurations. This in turn reinforced the idea that bigger means better for everyday use. Another cultural factor is the American relationship with personal space. Compared to many countries, Americans prefer more room in homes, restaurants, stores, and yes, cars. A bigger vehicle offers a sense of privacy, comfort, and safety. Whereas the high driving position of SUVs provides a psychological feeling of control and visibility that many drivers find reassuring. These emotional responses are powerful influences on consumer behavior, often outweighing fuel efficiency or compact convenience. Lifestyle trends also shape this preference. Outdoor recreation, camping, road trips, mountain biking, boating plays a huge part in American leisure culture. Vehicles capable of towing, carrying gear, and handling varied terrain are naturally favored. Pickup trucks, for example, are not adopted only for work. They're embraced for lifestyle flexibility, combining ruggedness with modern comfort. It's no coincidence that states with strong outdoor cultures, Colorado, Montana, Utah, tend to favor SUVs and trucks even more strongly. Together, these cultural and lifestyle forces merge into a powerful long-term trend. Americans don't just drive big vehicles because they must. They drive them because these vehicles match the way Americans live, travel, work, and define personal identity. This cultural foundation sets the stage for another major factor that reinforces the trend: economic structure and vehicle marketing, which we will explore in the next section. Another major reason Americans prefer big vehicles lies not in engineering or geography, but deep within psychology. Cars in the United States are more than transportation. They're personal space, a sense of security, and an extension of one's identity. While many countries treat cars as functional tools, Americans often see them as moving living rooms, protective shells, and symbols of independence. This emotional connection reinforces the cultural trend that bigger feels better. That comfort plays the central role. In a country where commuting long distances is normal, Americans have developed strong preferences for vehicles that provide a spacious cabin, comfortable seats, and plenty of storage. The ability to stretch out, recline, or carry work equipment, sports gear, groceries, and kids' items all in one vehicle creates a sense of convenience that smaller cars simply cannot replicate. Big vehicles offer room to breathe, a psychological luxury that heavily influences preference. Safety is another powerful factor. Wide roads, high-speed interstates, and long-distance travel make drivers acutely aware of the risks on the road. Heavier, taller vehicles naturally give drivers a greater feeling of protection. Sitting higher offers clearer visibility, making drivers feel more confident and in control. Even if modern crash tests show small cars can be safe, the perception of safety is what drives behavior, and perception often outweighs data. The belief that bigger means safer is deeply embedded in American driving culture. There's also a strong identity component. For decades, American media, from movies to commercials, has portrayed full-size SUVs and trucks as symbols of resilience, capability, and personal freedom. The rugged truck crossing a muddy trail, the big SUV climbing a snowy mountain road, these images became cinematic shorthand for the American spirit. Choosing a larger vehicle feels like choosing strength, versatility, and preparedness, even for drivers who never leave paved roads. And in suburban and rural communities, driving a big vehicle becomes a form of social alignment. When your neighbors, co-workers, and family all drive SUVs or pickups, the choice reinforces belonging. The larger vehicle isn't just a machine, it becomes a cultural signal that you live the same lifestyle as the people around you. When comfort, safety perception, and identity combine, they form a powerful psychological engine that keeps the demand for big vehicles strong. These emotional factors build directly on the economic and environmental patterns from the previous part, and together they shape a national preference that goes beyond logic alone. Now that we understand how psychology shapes America's taste for size, the next part explores how marketing, branding, and decades of automotive storytelling have further amplified this preference, turning big vehicles into cultural icons. But there is another major reason Americans prefer big cars, one that is often overlooked, yet deeply influential: infrastructure and land use planning. Unlike Europe or many parts of Asia, the United States was built around the assumption that people would travel long distances by road. This shaped the nation's highways, suburbs, shopping centers, and even daily habits. And over time, that environment naturally pushed the country toward larger vehicles. Across most of the US, cities and towns are spread far apart. Homes are spaced widely, neighborhoods sit miles from commercial areas, and essential services often require long drives. Public transportation is limited in many states, and walking infrastructure is often incomplete. In this kind of landscape, a compact city car simply feels out of place. Americans want vehicles that are comfortable for long drives, stable on highways, and capable of handling everything from family trips to rural commutes. Bigger cars meet those needs effortlessly. American roads also contribute to this trend. Highways in the US are wide, smooth, and built for sustained high-speed travel. Lanes are larger than in many other countries, making bigger vehicles easier to maneuver. Parking spaces are larger too, removing the challenges that compact cars face in dense urban areas abroad. The entire driving ecosystem is designed with space in mind, and that space encourages the adoption of larger vehicles like SUVs and pickup trucks. Suburban development is another powerful factor. After World War II, the United States experienced massive suburban expansion. Families moved into spacious neighborhoods with garages, driveways, and at least 2 vehicles per household. In these environments, big cars are not only practical, they are socially normal. Kids' sports equipment, family road trips, home improvement materials, and lifestyle gear all fit more comfortably in larger vehicles. Then there is the American love for road trips. With vast national parks, long scenic routes, and interstate highways connecting coast to coast, the culture of exploring by car is deeply rooted. Bigger vehicles offer more storage, more comfort, and more versatility for these journeys. Whether driving through snowy mountain passes, desert highways, or rural farmland, having a larger vehicle provides a sense of capability and preparedness that smaller cars often lack. Infrastructure, housing design, and road networks all reinforce the same idea. In the United States, the world around you is built for a big car. So even if fuel costs rise or environmental preferences shift, the physical structure of American life continues to support and even encourage the popularity of large vehicles. Beyond practicality, safety, and economic reasoning, there is one final force that explains why Americans overwhelmingly prefer big cars: cultural identity. In the United States, vehicles have never been just machines for daily transportation. They have long been symbols of independence, strength, freedom, and personal space. This cultural layer is often overlooked, yet it is one of the strongest and most persistent drivers behind America's love of large vehicles. For decades, the American automobile identity has been shaped by movies, advertising, and national mythology. Pickup trucks rolling across wide-open plains, families traveling cross-country in spacious SUVs, and powerful engines roaring through scenic highways. These images became embedded in the American imagination. They reflect a spirit of exploration, self-reliance, and the belief that life should not be constrained by space or limitations. Larger vehicles naturally align with these values in a way small cars simply cannot replicate. This cultural preference influence is also reinforced through generational transfer. Many Americans grew up with trucks and SUVs around them, vehicles owned by parents, relatives, or neighbors. As these children became adults, they instinctively gravitated towards similar types of cars, not just out of utility, but because big vehicles felt normal, familiar, and comforting. The car someone grows up in often becomes the template for the car they choose as an adult. And in most parts of the US, that template is undeniably large. Marketing has further amplified this image. Automobile brands built entire identities around size, capability, and ruggedness. Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, Dodge. These brands portray big vehicles as tools for empowerment. A pickup truck is sold not only as a machine, but as a lifestyle symbol. The ability to tow, haul, explore, and break boundaries. Even drivers who never tow a trailer or drive off-road still connect emotionally with the idea of owning a vehicle that can do those things. The potential alone becomes part of the appeal. This regional culture adds another layer. In rural states, trucks and SUVs symbolize resilience and preparedness, traits deeply valued in agricultural and frontier communities. In suburban regions, large family-oriented SUVs became associated with comfort, safety, and successful family life. Meanwhile, in states like Texas, Montana, Colorado, and Oklahoma, the truck is practically woven into the fabric of local identity, representing tradition and regional pride. Even in urban states where smaller cars might logically make sense, cultural influence remains strong. Many Americans see small cars as underpowered, cramped, and less aligned with the aspirational image of freedom and capability. Bigger cars simply fit the national character: larger houses, larger roads, larger personal space expectations, and a long-standing cultural preference for comfort and dominance on the road. Ultimately, America's preference for big cars is not just about size, it's about identity. A large vehicle becomes an extension of personal values: independence, security, possibility, and confidence. It reflects a long cultural history shaped by geography, media, and generational experience. Even as electric vehicles grow in popularity and fuel prices fluctuate, the emotional connection Americans have with big cars remains one of the strongest forces driving the market. And unless national identity itself changes, the love for large vehicles will continue to dominate American roads. Across geography, lifestyle, culture, psychology, and economics, one message becomes clear: America's love for big cars didn't appear overnight. It was shaped by the land, the history, and the way people live, from wide open highways to family-centered life, from personal comfort to a sense of freedom and protection. Big vehicles became part of the national identity. And as new technologies emerge, the question now is, will America's love for big cars continue, or will the future reshape it?